That was DJ Quad's Dreams. You can find a link to it in the description as non-copyright music. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages. I'm Grant Magic, the dictator of the Virgan Republic. This is the Virgan radio service. With me today, I have the much requested, highly awaited, possibly highlight of this season. It's it's James from the House of Mithras.
How are you today, Grant?
I'm very well. How are you yourself?
Fantastic. I was looking forward to this for weeks.
Good stuff. Let me pull out the old question sheet. Should have done this before it. Sorry.
Okay.
Oh dear, where's it gone? Okay, let's start off with what exactly is the House of Mithras' purpose?
Well, I'd say, in a nutshell, the House of Mithras' purpose is to make this world a better place by inspiring good people to become great.
Excellent. And what exactly is the House of Mithras? It's not a micronation, and it's not a it's not exactly a micronation.
No, we consider ourselves a micronational institution. My personal belief is that we don't have in place everything that I believe we should have to be considered a micronation. Granted, other people would disagree. There's many people out there that have less in place and still consider themselves micronations, and I don't judge, and that's perfectly fine. But as far as we're concerned, there are some milestones that we feel that we need to reach before we can call ourselves a legitimate micronation. So in the meantime, we call ourselves a micronational institution that functions like a micronation, that exists like a micronation, but does not claim to be a micronation. It does come with some added benefits because no member of my household is a member of a micronation, so they can join other micronations, and other micronations could join my household without it being a conflict of interest at this time.
Excellent. So, how is the chair or the leader of Mithras, the House of Mithras, selected?
Well, on June 12th, 1993, when my brother and I were young, not much younger than you, but still young, we were wandering through the woods in Sumas Mountain, just in the lower mainland of British Columbia. And there was this old man that lived in the neighborhood. He was an old hermit, and he would interact with us. And one day he comes up to us and he says, this is what I'm going to make you guys. I'm going to make you guys lords of your own countries, or whatever it was. I can't remember for sure what he said. So my brother ignored that, but I took it and ran. And while that man was probably a crazy old man, and nothing he said probably meant anything. It was during a time in my life that was, I think I needed that. So while I was given the title, what I try to maintain within my household is that anybody has the right to challenge my title. They can bring it up for vote if they feel that I don't deserve it. They can ask everyone else if it's something that they want to maybe have somebody else. But as of yet, nobody's done that. Nobody's even questioned that yet. should that never arise, I will probably just have one of my children inherit it, or I will pass it on to somebody else who I feel is more deserving.
Okay. And what does Mithras do to benefit the community?
Through hands-on mentorship and by example, we hope to inspire the community to strive to do things better. Being an example to the outside world, that even the smallest of us can make a huge impact. We believe in people. We believe in the potential that everyone has, and we want to see that happen. We want to see people step up and try to make a difference. And what do? We try to mentor people to do that. We try to encourage people, to inspire people to become better than they've ever imagined themselves being. I think that I can speak for every member of the household when I say that.
Excellent. Why was the House of Mithras established?
I don't know why it was established originally, if it was not established before me. I know that kind of sounds a little bit crazy, but getting back to that old man in the woods, the reason why I maintained it, I had a troubled childhood. I was put in foster care as a child. There was a lot of stuff that led up to that, and basically broken. I was a broken person, and I didn't belong, and I didn't feel like anybody cared. I didn't feel like I mattered, and I think that I'm not the only micronationalist that feels this way, but I think that I needed to belong. I think I needed to be important, to matter somehow, and this was the way that seemed to make the most sense at the time. So the reason why it was established, or the reason why I maintained it, was to feel like I mattered. Now, this was 25 and a half years ago. That's not a question in my life anymore, whether I matter or not. Now, today, I maintain it because I want it to help other people feel like they matter. Kind of giving back.
Absolutely. Excellent. And how can the House of Mithras help members of the community? That really falls under one of the other question. What does Mithras do to benefit the community? But what can the House of Mithras do for the individual as apart from the entire thing?
Well, there's a few things that we're working on right now. We have the Micronational University that we're working on. Sorry that it has not been published yet. The first course I messed up on the videos. Anybody who was expecting that to be published last weekend, I apologize. It will be published soon. I just have to fix up one last video. So we have the Micronational University. I am going to be setting myself up to coach leadership through social media. Setting up myself for public speaking, that's something that I've kind of always wanted to do. There's a lot of people that want to understand the mindset behind the micronationalist. A friend of mine, the Prince of Lawrenceburg, did a presentation last year in England, and it was very nicely done. And he was given the opportunity to come out from Sweden to do that. So there's that curiosity. There's a lot of universities are teaching courses on micronationalism, and this gives me even more opportunity to go out and speak, as well as I want to give presentations on leadership and business. I do have plans to recruit a team of people that want to become leaders in business and in the community, to help them build themselves up, help them build up their portfolios, help them to understand different principles, and hopefully give them kind of a jump start where I can help them start up their own website or start writing a book or something, whatever it takes. I also work very hard to collaborate with other micronations, especially the ones that are reasonably new. I want to encourage the new micronations out there to step up and do the things that they wouldn't otherwise do, but do it professionally. So this is kind of how I'm trying to make a difference in our community.
Absolutely. Excuse me. Um, if we can now move on to the subject of the community.
Sure.
Can I have your view on the current state of the community?
I believe that the micronational community is in a state of transition right now. We're going through a period where macro-national political and economic uncertainty is becoming a driving force in a lot of people stepping back and looking for alternatives. I think Liberland is a really good example of that. There are many people throughout North America, throughout Canada and the United States, and possibly in the UK, who 20 years ago never would have even imagined the concept of wanting to start their own country or be part of a micronation, that are now finding this to be a viable option to the macronational alternative. I believe that the community in general is experiencing growing pains in that regard. Things that are happening that wouldn't have happened 10 years ago. Can you give me a moment, please?
Currently, James is away dealing with a problem at home. He will be back very shortly to review on what's currently happening. We're now on the subject of the micronational community and what's going on in it.
I'm so sorry about that.
It's just absolutely okay.
I have these two lovely children. One is 2, and he likes to cry. It's something that children do. Unfortunately, the day home provider was sick today.
If you can't stop them from crying, that's absolutely okay.
Oh, I have this lovely mute button. It does wonders. Unfortunately, you can't hear me answer your questions when it's muted. So yes, the micronational community in general, we are going through transition right now. A lot of micronations are starting up when 10, 15 years ago, there was some micronations starting up. There are literally thousands out there, and there are micronations that exist today that you never would have seen, the concept you never would have seen 10, 15 years ago. So we're all experiencing it.
Absolutely. What can the community do to better its own image? How can we attract more people to the idea of micronationalism?
Well, in short, the word is professionalism. Professionalism, basically, you want to act in a way that characterizes yourself as a professional. That's what professionalism is. You want to act in a way that when people look at you, they think, okay, this guy has his stuff together. And what the community needs to do is learn how to be professional. They want to show the macronational community that we have our stuff together. When people are looking at politicians and they're thinking, oh, that guy's got problems, that guy has issues, or that gal has issues, we want them to look at us and say, these guys are on the ball, or else they will continue to think that we're crazy. It's very important that we eliminate simulationism and micronational wars. That's absolutely essential. The whole idea of a micronational war is ludicrous. It should not happen. There is never an excuse for it. And I think that's one of the keys for getting rid of the stigma that people have about our community.
You brought up the subject of walls. Now, I do actually have people that I know who think that making a wall is acceptable. I have had people on the show before who think micronational war is acceptable. My my question for you about this subject and this topic is, what do you have to say to these people that think that this is absolutely okay? And
I'm a retired soldier. I know what war looks like. I know what war feels like. I have lost friends in Afghanistan. And a micronational war is not war. It's an argument, typically online, a Facebook or Twitter argument. And that's not a war. That's just petty bickering. Sometimes you'll have people that might do exercises. That's great. They go out in the back 40 and they pellet each other with paintball guns. That's not a war either. That's fun. That's good fun play. That's healthy. That's a great opportunity for people to learn how to work together. That's not a war. If that's what people are doing, that's fine. Don't call it a war though, because that's not a war. But a war involves killing people. A war involves death. And those first 4 soldiers that were killed in Afghanistan in 2001, those were my soldiers. Those were my platoon. And they were killed by a U.S. fighter jet, accidentally bombed us. It was friendly fire. And the damage done to those bodies was reprehensible. And the fact that somebody can say, oh, I'm having a micronational war, and compare them, their war, their little tiff, to something like that is offensive to any soldier, retired or active, period. My chief of house security is an acting member of the Canadian military, and he's been to Afghanistan on tour twice, and he would agree with me, I'm pretty sure, he would agree with me that a micronational tiff is not a war. And I think that saying that it's a war is akin to simulationism. So let them take that as they will. If they disagree with me, they can either let me know or not. That's up to them. I am an authority on that subject, and they can challenge that all they want.
okay, what do you hope the community can achieve together?
Oh, I think that everyone who knows me knows that I believe that the time is coming when millions of people will abandon hundreds of macronations for thousands of micronations. I believe and I hope that this community will create a culture that both shames and inspires the macronational community to just do better. I think that the concerns within the macronational community, a lot of them are a joke. A lot of the prejudices, a lot of the idealisms, a lot of the ideas that macronational leaders have are a joke. And I want to see the micronational community shame them. I want our ideals, I want the things that we do, our professionalism, to inspire these macronational leaders to change their ways. Hopefully, as a result, these macronational countries will become better places to live. Or else, if that doesn't happen, I want the micronational community to take over. I want the macronations out there to disintegrate if they can't fix themselves.
Okay.
I think it comes down to that.
So, how would how could we make a big enough wave to get a real macronation to actually recognise us and look at what's going on in the community?
Well, I think it's I think the history of micronationalism is a lot more interesting than people know. The most famous micronation in the world is the United States. When they got their independence, that's effectively what they were, a micronation. Jamaica was also a micronation. Jamaica's history is actually more so in tune with micronationalism. How can we make that difference? how can we make it so a macronation recognizes us? Part of it is being loud enough, but I think a big thing is just being professional, doing things right, getting things done right, inspiring the right people, inspiring people. One of the biggest threats that any leader has is the threat of his followers leaving him. And what better way to get recognized by the macronations than to have their people recognize us as a viable alternative to macronational government.
Okay. Going back to the point of people who think war's acceptable. This is a broader area than just those nations in particular. What is your opinion on nations that choose to run riot about this community? The ones that participate in so-called wars, the ones that choose to engage in simulationism, the ones that choose to engage in petty arguments and being unprofessional, and also using their nation's Twitter as an outlet for their own views. What's your opinion on nations that engage and do all these things?
I think that I can possibly split that up into two categories.
Okay.
You have some that do it because they don't know how else to function. That's just who they are, whatever. They don't know better, whatever the case might be. And typically those ones, it's not really that big of an issue. Yeah, they'll have their little tiffs online. You know what? I'm guilty of that too. That's happened. Actually, there's one particular incident that I actually felt really bad about after. It was over a religious thing too, of all things. I felt that I should know better. But you have the ones that really I can overlook because they're just learning. They haven't been around very long. They don't know better. They need the mentorship. And then you have the ones that are overtly simulationists that just won't change their ways. For whatever reason, they feel so inferior that they have to convince even the micronations out there that they're akin to the macronational world. Those people I don't have the resolve for. I simply don't have the resolve for them. They're like an unemployed college student who maxes out his credit card, buys alcohol with it, drinks all the alcohol, and gets kicked out of school, and suddenly he has no money on his credit card, no alcohol left, no education. And what does he have to show for it? Nothing. That's how I compare them. They are going to lose. They're going to lose their reputation within the community. They're probably never going to be able to hold a leadership position within the community. They might not even be able to find a micronation out there that will accept them as members. And simple as that, I just don't have the resolve for that. And I don't think any other micronation should have the resolve for that.
Okay. What can the community do to curb nations like this from growing, and what can we stop from new nations? How can we stop new nations acting in this way?
Well, to deal with these nations, these micronations, I think ultimately exclusion through non-recognition and boycotts will make a huge difference. If they don't have any followers on Twitter, then they're going to have no influence. Simple as that. You have the new micronations out there that see them and think, oh, they're a big deal. Yeah, that's kind of a concern. I think we need to be transparent and we need to be professional to basically show up these other micronations. You'll find that good leaders hang out with good leaders. Rich people hang out with rich people. Athletes hang out with athletes. And it's not necessarily because they feel like it. It's more because they relate. So if you have a micronation that's professional and serious and transparent, they're more likely to be drawn to other micronations that are professional and transparent and serious about what they're doing, which will in turn alienate these ones that are not transparent, that are not serious, that are not professional. And we need to do that to push them out. That's my opinion. As far as the other ones, as far as the new micronations, to make sure they don't do that, really comes down to mentorship. Every experienced, seasoned micronation should step up, take these new micronations, and just coach them along just long enough so that they have their bearings. These are the people who you want to talk to. These are the people you don't want to talk to. This is what you want to be like. This is what you don't want to be like. Just long enough so they have their own bearings. That's my opinion.
Okay. And what can the community do to ultimately progress? Where can we go from here, and how can we achieve this progression?
There are four key points that I want to bring up as far as progression goes. The first one is culture. Every micronation needs culture. Culture is probably culture is what binds communities together. There's this old saying that says a family that prays together stays together. It's not because they're all the same religion. It's because they all have the same ritual, the same thing that they do, the same tradition they do. When you create culture within your family or within your individual micronation, you're creating this binding point that keeps people together. Now, in an inter-micronational aspect, culture doesn't quite look the same. Culture looks more like, this is how we talk to each other, this is how we address each other, this is how we be diplomatic with each other, this is how we recognize other people's holidays, or whatever the case might be. And also it becomes a matter of having our own holidays. Christmas, I think, is a great example. Christmas doesn't belong to any one country. It's an international holiday. Well, I guess there's some countries that don't recognize it, but there's a good portion of countries that do recognize Christmas. It doesn't belong to England. It doesn't belong to the United States. It doesn't belong to Brazil. It belongs to the world. And I think the micronational world needs to look at certain things along those lines, things that will bind us together. So to progress, we need to establish our culture as a community. Professionalism. Professionalism is defined as conduct, aims, or qualities that characterize or mark a profession or professional person. I think that professionalism is essential for moving forward, to say that we are authorities on the subject, to say that we will be reliable, we will be integral in what we do. I think that's very significant within a community of people that a lot of us are quite young. There's many micronationalists that are 14, 15 years old that have never been exposed to such terms, I guess, as integrity and reliability, and have never had to practice it. We need to practice that. Education is very important. When we start understanding the world around us through education, when we start understanding the nature of micronationalism, the nature of macronationalism, when we start understanding economics and politics, I think that brings us up to a higher class. And collaboration is also extremely important. Collaboration is what brings us together so that we can work on projects together. No one project needs to belong to one micronation. I mean, look at all of the projects. Look at the G20 or the G8 or any of those, the Kyoto Accord or whatever it's called. Any of these projects out there that belong to many countries. Look at the International Space Station. That doesn't belong to any one country. And as far as micronationalism, I think that we should have projects together and we should collaborate and make a difference. We should help micronations in third world countries or in poorer countries be able to step up and help their people and make a difference and inspire people. I think that we should build holidays together. We should build bridges is one of the key words that I like to say. I like to tell people, I don't care what religion you are, what color you are, what gender or age you are. All I care is about the quality of your character, because I want to build bridges with you. I don't want to build walls. And that's something that we need to do. We need to learn how to collaborate, and we need to do it fairly and honestly. And we need to put our pride aside when we do it.
It was a very good answer.
Thank you.
No problem. In regards to building bridges and doing things together, there is unfortunately a lot of conflict in the community. Most is unfortunately people stirring what, and you'll need to excuse my language here, but it's what I like to call is stirring the big shit pot. And some nations are quite good at that, and
Yeah.
Other nations do unfortunately jump on that gravy train when it occurs. How can we better relations with each other when it does come down to the basics, like recognition and so on and so forth? How can we do that?
One of the first things that we need to remember as micronational leaders is that we don't have the right to feel offended by anything anybody ever says. We don't have that right because nobody accepts that we have that right, so we don't. And everything that we say will offend somebody. It doesn't matter how innocent it is, it will offend somebody. When we go up to people with that mindset, when we present ourselves to other micronational leaders with that mindset, especially if they carry the same mindset, we can build a bridge right there, based on the fact that we get that we're going to offend somebody and that we can't be offended no matter what. We will learn how to use our words wisely, and at the same time, we will learn how to show respect to other people. Sometimes I think that it's good for the community to be shaken up a little bit, for somebody to pipe up and say, hey, I'm mad at this. I think that the macro-national community wouldn't, macro-national leaders don't usually look as good when they do it. I think that I could name potentially some macro-national leaders who've gotten some hot water for doing such things.
Oh, go for it. Name names.
I will not name any names.
Okay.
Thank you very much for the invitation, but that is something that I feel that I'm not.
You know I was joking, right?
Yes, I do. But that also gives me the opportunity to tell people I'm not going to name names, and it's not because I agree or disagree with them, but because I just don't feel that the position that I will one day have within this community gives me leave to do such things. Which means that I will respect every micronation that presents itself to me, and I will try to be honest and transparent with them, whether I like them or not.
Okay. We've come on to the part of the show where it's now time for you guys at home to give James here some questions. This is gonna go on for about a 5-minute period. Get the questions in, and let's do this. The way I like to end is do you have any questions for me?
Okay. Do I have any questions for you?
You in particular.
No, you know what? You've actually answered probably every single question I've had over conversations that you and I have had through Twitter, at least at this point. Most of the questions that I have now are probably circumstantial questions, which right now nothing's coming up. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
But I will come up with questions as time goes on. Don't worry.
That's alright. I have already asked this question, but like, could you give like more detail into how the micronational community is currently expanding? How Do you think that we're doing enough to attract new people?
I think that there's more that we can do. I think that we can collaborate to create programs to draw people to us. I think that's one thing that we can do. We can work together to create a better image of the community. That's something that we can do. We can do that through programs together, through education. One thing that I wanted to do, I didn't get a chance to do it, unfortunately, but I wanted to set up some promotional posters. I was hoping to start passing them out back in the beginning of December. I didn't get that opportunity, which is unfortunate, but that's okay. Next year we'll try again. That was to just challenge people to look into it. I think that people need to understand more about us before we can start drawing them into the community. And the best way we can do that is to put ourselves out there.
What are the methods that we can do, that we can use to achieve this?
What message can we use? I think that every micronation can come up with their own message. I like to challenge people to do better. I think that a micronation can challenge a macronational leader. You try to show them up. And I think that's something that a micronation should strive to do. But a micronation has to earn the right to do that. They need to do that by being better. Once again, getting back to the whole concept of helping good people become great people. That's what I believe the micronational community needs to learn how to do. And then we need to look at these macronational leaders and tell them, say, hey, can you be a great person? Or are you going to continue to use smear campaigns to get your position, or give up on people in smaller communities to get your position because those smaller communities don't matter to you, or demographics, using demographics against people, immigrants versus colored versus whatever the case might be. But we need to be better people, and we need to show up the macronational community, but we need to do that in such a way that people see it, so that we can get them to ask questions, so we can get them to investigate.
Okay. It's come to the time of the question area for yourself, James, by the viewership. The first question comes from the Highland People's Republic.
All right.
How does he feel about the Hania Empire as well as fascism in the community?
Yeah, I'm not really familiar with a lot of the fascism in the community. I try to avoid any fascist micronations. Anyone that seems fascist, I try to avoid. First, what I try to do is I try to encourage them to not be fascist. And then if they won't, I will just stop interacting with them. The Hanian Empire has their niche. The leader of the Hanian Empire she's very passionate about what she does. She is also very human. And when you get to know her as a person, she's actually a wonderful lady. She has this passion that drives her. And she does have quite a few followers outside of Twitter, on Discord I've never actually viewed her Discord, so this is kind of secondhand knowledge. I won't use the methods that she uses to draw a following. And I'm not going to judge her for doing it. She has her way of doing things, but this is also her target are the people that follow her belief system, and that's okay. Once again,
Excuse
I wouldn't
me?
do. Yes.
Sorry, continue, please.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Once again, I wouldn't do things the way she does. She, as a person, is very human, very nice person with a big heart, and I understand why people have issues with her, and I understand why she has issues with other people. But beyond that, I think it's a good idea for me to kind of keep out of that one. I think I gave enough information about that one.
Very well. Daniel Elliott asks, what advice, if any, would you have for micronationalists that would want to be more professional than they already are?
Hey, can you ask that question again, please?
Daniel Elliott asks, what advice, if any, would you have for micronationalists that would want to be more professional than they already are?
What advice? Okay. One is how they present themselves. Initial presentation is pretty important, especially when you consider the fact that the average person will judge whether they will like someone or dislike someone within the first 9 seconds of meeting the person. So that initial presentation is key. If you can present yourself as being professional, if you can show up dressed properly, appropriately, with appropriate language, talking about the right things, you can usually get somebody to automatically decide that they like you, or at the very least they want to tolerate you. That's step one. After that is doing what you say you're going to do, doing it to the best of your ability. And that's the tough one sometimes, especially when you can't always judge what's going to happen, or if you're relying on other people who have a hard time keeping up. That can be a tough one. So leave yourself room to make mistakes. And always read, always learn, always watch those videos that help you to see better ways of doing things. Learn how to talk to people, learn how to run a business, learn how to do any of these things that need to be done to be perceived as a professional.
Very good. We don't currently have any more questions, but if anyone does, please post them out. I do have a question that I didn't ask earlier. How does the House of Mithras function as this organisation?
How does the House of Mithras function as an organization? We're actually pretty laid back. I don't know if you can hear my son in the background roaring. Yeah, he's
quite energetic, isn't he?
Say again?
She said he's quite energetic, isn't he?
He is nonstop. He's my proof of professionalism, right? There's my professionalism. I'm talking in front of thousands of people here, and they can hear my 2-year-old son pretending to be a dinosaur. Getting back to that question, can you please repeat that question? I got distracted.
How does the House of Mithras function as an organisation?
Once again, the House of Mithras is pretty laid back in regards to a lot of things. The members of the household are pretty mature in how they deal with things on a professional level. They know how to sit down and be professional. They know how to sit down and be casual. And we know when to be professional. We know when to be casual, which gives us a lot of room. With what we do in-house, as far as our traditions go in-house, we don't really need to do anything ceremonious. Now, if we had a much larger population, that would change. So I think the way we function right now is probably different than the way we would function in a different circumstance, but we maintain very casual ways of doing things. At the same time, we work hard to give people the confidence that we can step up and be professional and do things the way they need to get done. Beyond that, we have Chief of House Security. He is in the Canadian military, as I mentioned before. He is very well versed in military tactics as well as security concepts. We have a chief counselor who has a degree in political science, who has a firm grasp of the concept of constitutions and basically how countries work. and he is an asset when it comes to knowing how to deal with um, macro national issues as well as how to address certain things. I draw on his wisdom a lot. Once again, we do it very casually. To become a member of the House of Mithras is not a matter of me saying, hey, why don't you join? We take the time to learn who the person is, and after a while, if we feel that this person is material for us, we will invite him to join, or her. We don't judge. And it's usually pretty casual. We will require a commitment, and that commitment is basically to do what it takes to help good people to become great and to strive to become a better person. Once again, we're pretty casual about most everything.
Okay. And what is?
I think that's a very long-winded answer, wasn't it?
Yeah. What is the current population of the House of Mithras?
Oh, do I have to count? Probably about a dozen and a half. So not very many. But that also includes children. Children are automatically citizens. And they do also get a scholarship for post-secondary education from the House.
Very good. There has been no further questions from you from the live audience, so I will end this episode here. But I do thank everyone from home for listening in tonight. James, obviously, I thank yourself for being a part of this episode today. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you very much for asking me, and thank you to everyone who listened and everyone who will listen. Grant, it was an honor and a pleasure to speak with you and to share my micronational institution with you. And I hope that we can do this again. And I hope to get to know each and every person listening to this program and help them to be who they could be.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, well, again, thanks to everyone who listened at home. We'll be back next week with the Imperial Union of Kiania. And again, thanks.